Hello and welcome into another edition of 8Sports Nightcap. So happy to be back on air here after the past couple of weeks. We didn't have an episode. I actually went on a big vacation overseas to Europe, and I got something over there. So I'm a little sick sounding right now. So apologies to all of those listening. But man, a lot of stuff's been going on since the last time we spoke with you all here on 8Sports Nightcap. Obviously, the NBA playoffs in full swing. The NHL playoffs are underway as well, as both the Eastern and Western Conference are set in both sides, NBA and NHL. And I was trying to figure out what's the best way to talk about this, right? And one of my new recent favorite follows on Twitter is none other than Jack Fitzpatrick, and he has taken the time to join our show today. Jack, welcome in. Obviously, runs a sports talk show on ESPN 106.1 FM, fits the bill every morning, and really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk some ball with us here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. If I can find more than 2 hours per day, every morning, 8 to 10 a.m. on ESPN Richmond to talk sports, I am more than happy to, because sports is always rolling, and I'm always down to talk everything that's happening. I mean, Knicks Pacers, you could spend 15 days talking about how in the world we even got that. And then we got Ant-Man and the Timberwolves trying to take down SGA and OKC. So that should be fantastic. And then the Stanley Cup playoffs, of course, just continuing on.
Yeah, before we jump into all of that, we were just, kind of joking before the show started here. We've never actually officially met. This is our first time chatting with each other. So if you could tell, maybe tell me a little bit about your background as well as our viewers. I know you're a Virginia guy. You went to JMU, I saw online. So what's a little bit of your sports broadcasting background?
Yeah, of course, my head is covering it, but I have all of my JMU. When I was setting up my home office, I didn't think through the Zoom
Yeah,
headspace
exactly.
background, because I was like, I'm going to put the JMU national championship picture right behind me. It's going to be awesome. And then my head covers it for every single Zoom meet, everything I'm part of. So I got all my JMU stuff directly behind my head. That's where I went to school, majored in journalism, class of 2019, and had a blast there. I grew up in Fredericksburg, Virginia. So, Virginia, born and raised, every part of it. And then once I graduated college, I lived in New York City for a bit, working for CBS Sports, with their CBS Sports Network and things of that sort. I found my way down to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I worked for a little bit, doing play-by-play commentating. And that's why you see, let's see, again, on my Zoom background, if you're watching this, you see the Charlotte stuff prime, front and center. That's where I should have put the JMU stuff. Lived down there, and then I moved up to Richmond, started working with ESPN Richmond. And then when the great Big Al retired at the end of February, I stepped in and took over his morning role, 8 to 10 a.m. every weekday morning on ESPN Richmond.
Yeah, so we've kind of had similar backgrounds. Broadcast, you kind of got to jump all over the place to get your foot in the door. I was the same way. I graduated for Virginia Tech in 18, and I was in West Virginia, North Carolina, Alabama, and then now I'm finally here. It's been about a year since I've been here. How long have you been in the River City?
I moved up in June, so we're quickly approaching a year as well.
Yeah.
I came down all the time when I lived in Fredericksburg, and then I moved up here with my girlfriend, and it's been a fantastic time. But yeah, I didn't want to, when I graduated college, and not to get too in the weeds of like up and coming journalists and sports journalism and everything.
Yeah.
But it was like, you can either live in the middle of nowhere America in Iowa. No
Yep.
offense to Iowa, I love Iowa, great state, delicious pork. If you find your way out to the Iowa State Fair, I highly recommend it. But I didn't really want to live in Iowa full time, right? So instead, I was like, I'm going to take an untraditional route, and I'm going to bounce around, go to big city, and take opportunities that are a little off the beaten path. And so I was doing a lot of social media stuff, a lot of digital marketing for sports books, for CBS Sports, things like that. And then worked my way up to kind of then pry my way into the door at ESPN Richmond as a producer, and then eventually kind of worked the way up. So yeah, it's been a jumping around to find our way back to the River
Yeah,
City.
I'm a little jealous because my first, couple of stops, now that I guess we're just going to talk sports journalism here. But, I was in Bluefield, West Virginia, and then I was in Greenville, North Carolina. Like, I would have much rather been in New York City
Hey,
and
Greenville's
Charlotte.
nice. Greenville's
I
awesome.
enjoyed my time in Greenville immensely, covering ECU and the Pirates, and
Yeah.
luckily their fan base is so great that it was a lot of fun to cover those
Ooh,
teams. But
I, I I got the receiving end of their fandom a couple of times, because I did a lot of baseball play-by-play for UNC Charlotte for the
okay, yeah,
49ers.
of course.
They had ECU had a kid that had the craziest last name in the world, a C, a Y, a Z, a K, all next to each other. I couldn't pronounce his name when I was doing one of their games to save my life. Somehow someone sent me what ECU fan boards were saying about my
Oh my goodness.
pronunciation of them, and I was like, oh, these
Was it
guys are ruthless.
Markowitz or something like that? I
It,
remember some of them being strange, but
it was a tough name.
anyway, so you graduated JMU, big JMU fan. Obviously, they've kind of been in the headlines here the past couple of years. Maybe we'll start with a little JMU football action. Bob Chesney, year one. What's your quick takeaway? Obviously, massive shoes to fill with Kurt Signetti leaving, and it seems like the fans over there in Harrisonburg are kind of adopting what Chesney's laying down.
You know, it's hard not to adopt pure positivity and how every day is the best day of your life
That
and
is
everything that Bob Chesney is preaching. And it's a stark contrast to what Kurt Signetti was. I mean, you think of your grumpy old grandpa, and that was Kurt Signetti, and it worked because he won, and I loved it.
Yeah.
He was going to tell you exactly how he felt. If his quarterback was underperforming, he's going to tell you that I think my quarterback sucks. And there was no sugarcoating it. It was beautiful. And then you go to Bob Chesney, who's all coach speak. He's all positivity, which it also works because he's also a winner. A little bit of a slower finish to the season, which was a little odd after their red hot start in 2024. But then they added a ton of talent in the transfer portal. And I host another JMU sports podcast called the JMU Sports News Podcast. And we just wrapped up today talking about it, how we expect JMU to really be in college football playoff consideration with that G5 spot, with the amount of talent they brought back and the amount of talent they brought in through the transfer portal.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how things shape up these next couple of years, especially with the group of five spot. I think there's a lot of programs around the country that feel like they're in a situation of where they can be a playoff team. But there's a lot of teams going for one spot in that situation. But nonetheless, how about we change things a little bit? Here, got my pin. Talk a little NBA basketball. I think the biggest storyline right now is obviously the New York Knicks. Obviously they're the biggest market team still left, and everyone wants to talk about the Knicks, but their fan base, I feel like, has also forced it. It's not like it's just LA or something. It's like they are just the memes, the fans throwing trash bags at Indiana Pacers fans in the streets. I mean, they've forced themselves in the center of this conversation, and with all of that said, I still kind of like the Pacers personally in terms of to come out of this thing. But it's crazy to think that we have four teams, none of which have won a championship in the last 50 years. Obviously, OKC and Seattle I don't think they really claim those supersonic years. But nonetheless, what's kind of your take as we enter the Eastern and Western Conference Finals?
Oh man, you brought up a sore spot. It's just cut out of the screen here, but I'm a huge Seahawks fan.
I see the Seahawks stuff.
Yeah, I'm a fan. My family's out in Seattle, so I still hold a hatred for OKC because they stole. I guess technically Seattle got rid of. That's a whole other story. But OKC can't claim that title that the Supersonics had. You can't claim it. No. That is Seattle's. I have a conspiracy theory I want to run by you, Nolan, and I didn't preface with this. I think that guy, that Pacers fan that had trash thrown on him, who's now being flown out for the games
Did he really?
by Tyrese Halliburton. I think it was all an inside job. I think he worked with the New York Knicks fans to have trash thrown at him so that Halliburton would actually fly him out to Indiana for all of the games. That's my hot take.
I don't know. I mean, watching that, I would have been terrified. Like,
same.
As someone that sometimes wear other teams, memorabilia at other games, like surely he had to have been talking trash for that sort of mob to be running after him. But yeah, what a great story at the end. I didn't realize that Halliburton had reached out to him, but
yeah, it'll happen on the McAfee show, and Halliburton's like, I'm flying you out, or whatever he's doing to make sure that the guy's taken care of. But look, if all it takes is to get some trash thrown on you and then maybe be scared for a little bit, and then have your favorite player reach out and take care of you for the playoffs, I'll sign up. I will happily have trash thrown at me in order to be taken care of for conference finals.
You might have a better insight on this since you spent a little bit of time in New York, but I'm kind of learning about it here recently. I didn't realize that all seven bureaus are all in on the Knicks. No one cares about the Nets. It seems like it's Knicks City, and it's like everyone's all in, and it's kind of strange because at the same time these are also Mets and Yankees fans, and so it's like you want to feel bad for Knicks fans, but I mean it's still the New York market. But it's like intoxicating the way the fans have really gotten behind the Knicks, and then obviously the team's so much fun to watch play as well. Jalen Brunson's been incredible. Cat's kind of found his niche with the new team as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is the one thing that brings New Yorkers together because, like you said, you have the Yankees and the Mets, you have the Giants and the Jets. Fun fact about the Brooklyn Nets: when they started as the New Jersey Nets, the owner just wanted to find a name that rhymed with the Mets and the Jets, and so he said Nets. I'm 95% this is a true story. If not,
I
it's a
would
great
believe
story.
It's a great made up story, if not.
Exactly. He said, what rhymes with Mets and Jets and has to do with basketball? Oh, the
The
Nets. And so they started in New Jersey. That's where their fandom is. They're the Brooklyn Nets. Like, come on, we're not. They are the New York Knicks. They bring together everyone, and it drives so much fandom around them. And then they're kind of built like their city, right? They're a hard nosed, tough team. Now, I guess New York necessarily isn't known as blue collar anymore, considering it's home of $1 million apartments and
Yep.
everything like that. But the backbone of the city, right? It is blue collar workers who keep that city going, and they can relate to Jalen Brunson playing 42 minutes. They can relate to Karl Anthony Towns playing 42 minutes. Josh Hart being a glue guy, Mikal Bridges being a defensive monster, and just being hard nosed in everyone's face. This team fits New York, and they finally have a team that they can rally behind after years and years and years. And I could go on for a long time of not even mediocrity, just
Yeah.
being like bad.
Exactly. And it's fun seeing, some of the celebrities on the sidelines. Obviously, Timothy Chalamet is kind of taking center stage, this go around in terms of star power. But I got to admit, it's hard not to root for them. Going into the playoffs, I didn't think we had a shot. I thought Cleveland was just going to run away with things. I thought Boston obviously could easily repeat. I think there's some asterisks in there if Tatum stays healthy, but even if he stayed healthy, I think
I
the
don't think
Knicks
so.
might have
Yeah.
still been able to take the series. So it's a little bit of a surprise, and it sets up an Eastern Conference final matchup with Indiana, a team that's never won a championship, that obviously has all sorts of basketball history around its franchise. And, we're kind of seeing, I feel like this playoffs, especially these conference finals, the emergence of some of the younger superstars that I think the NBA has needed. Now that Steph and LeBron are probably in their last 2 or 3 years of their careers, it's about time we've seen Anthony Edwards with the Timberwolves, kind of take center stage. And now there's no distractions or, other players that kind of put the spotlight on. Obviously, Tatum last year, a lot of, spotlight was on those guys. But to see Jalen Brunson and I think Tyrese Halliburton now kind of solidifying himself as probably top 15 players, pretty important for the league's health in general. Do you have any points or thoughts on Indiana and this Eastern Conference final?
Yeah, Indiana led by Tyrese. Tyrese is a dog of a player, and he has, especially in the postseason, he does a very good job of rising to the moment because this is an Indiana team that made it to the conference finals just a year ago. They go through some struggles in the regular season, never really play up to their full potential. And then you snap your fingers. Rick Carlisle is the coach of that team. He had so much success with the Dallas Mavericks, winning that championship over the Miami Heat. What was that, 2012, 2013, I want to say,
Yep.
with Dirk Nowitzki, and then finds his way to Indiana and just knows how to coach in the postseason. And he has players that know how to play in the postseason. Tyrese Halliburton is a fantastic face of the team, face of the city. Pascal Siakam is an excellent scorer that plays very, very well. And then they got just a bunch of dudes around them, like Benedict Mathurin, who's very good. TJ McConnell's good. Nembhard's very good. And they all know their roles. And that's something that we talk a lot about on Fits the Bill is the Knicks and the Pacers are two teams that you didn't expect to be here. But they are here because every single person on their teams know their roles.
Yep.
You're never going to see Josh Hart chuck an ill-advised three and he's going to finish the game with 15 three attempts. No, he's going to do exactly what's needed of him. He's going to put his nose down. He's going to go to work. And that's the same exact thing for the Pacers. They play good defense. They know what to do, and they play in their roles extremely well. And it's going to make for a really good series. And it's going to come down to, is Halliburton going to step up and average 25 to 30 points per game in this series? Or is Jalen Brunson going to step up? And is he going to average 25 to 30 points per game in this series? probably will go 6, maybe go 7, and it's going to be a defensive first showcase, which whose star can step up and lead them to the finals is how I see this playing out.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point with, you know, knowing their roles. It really does. Both of these teams feel like they're pretty deep in terms of, you know, where they get their production from and how they get it. I think what's interesting about the matchup in general is going into the postseason when, you know, you could create your ESPN brackets or whatever. The Indiana Pacers had the least amount of folks having them in the Eastern Conference Finals and the finals, and obviously winning the finals. And here we are a few weeks later, and it's you know, I'm sure it's not going to be great for ratings, but as a fan of the NBA, I think it's everything you want. And the fatigue of, you know, maybe some of the past champions, but even with that, I think 7 champions the past 7 years the NBA's had. I mean, it's the parity's been great, and I'm excited to see this matchup. And I definitely personally know a little more about the Eastern Conference than Western. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the T-Wolves and OKC. Obviously, I'll brain dump what knowledge I do have here, but the Thunder, a really young team, a lot of great young superstars. I know there's a lot of excitement. Obviously, had the best record going into the postseason this year, and then the T-Wolves have a lot of talent, and my favorite young star in the league, Anthony Edwards, hoping that he kind of has a big breakout game. We haven't really seen that this playoffs, him go for 40 or 50 yet, so I'm hoping to see that this Western Conference Finals, and I'm curious if OKC has any fatigue after playing 7 games against the Nuggets, whereas the T-Wolves had a little bit of a break there.
Yeah, 2 gentlemen sweeps back to back for the Timberwolves. Does that kind of make them feel a little bit more safe than they maybe should? That'll be seen on the court. But with the Thunder, I mean, they just went through that knockout, drag out fight with the Denver Nuggets, where each game, kind of except for game 7 where they just blew them out, but every game there was at least a point in it where it was a very physical contest, and the Thunder overcame it. They're extremely young, so it shouldn't necessarily hurt them too much moving forward, but it's a lot of expectations around them. You just wrap up a 7-game series, and for them, you have yesterday off, and then you're right back at it at home against a very, very hungry Timberwolves team that is led by Anthony Edwards. And you're bringing up face of the NBA earlier, who's going to be that young superstar. If Anthony Edwards makes it to the NBA Finals,
yeah.
So as it stands right now, it's back-to-back conference finals appearances. He did it with a different number 2 last year. It was Karl Anthony Towns. He gets shipped over to the New York Knicks. The Knicks give them Julius Randle, and he does it with the new number 2 to get back to the Western Conference Finals. And how did he get here? Oh, you just beat Luka and LeBron, a team that everyone was expecting to make it to the Western Conference Finals. And then the next step, what do? You beat, granted, it was the Steph Curry-less Warriors, but essentially Anthony Edwards just slammed the window shut on that Warriors dynasty / 2 timelines things.
I was pulling for it too. I was that after they had won that first game, I was like, let's go. Like, we're another year of this.
Yeah. But so Anthony Edwards slams the window shut on that. And now an opportunity to take down the best team in the regular season, the team with the best record in the regular season. Man, if he does that, he catapults himself into the echelon of superstar and can become the young face of the league. And he will need to have a very good kind of overall series. He's had a good so far playoffs, but like you said, hasn't erupted maybe as much as we had expected.
Yeah.
But he's been a very good distributor up to this point. Just looking over his stats, he's averaging just about 25-ish points per game. A good amount of assists. This past game 5 clinching game, 22 points, 12 assists. He's averaging about 5-ish assists on 25 points. So he's facilitating well, and he hasn't had to score a lot, especially with the way Julius Randle played this last series.
Yeah, I love Anthony Edwards. I'm very simple-minded, and if I like you as a person, I love you as a player. And I don't even know if I know him as a person, but more so, I love him as Kermit Witz from the Adam Sandler movie. What was it, Hustle? I loved him in that.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
completely forgot about that.
He was incredible in that movie, and I'm going to get into this because I loved him in it. he does it. He wasn't like just like when LeBron's in those Amy Schumer movies, he's LeBron James. No, like he was acting in those movies and he was acting well and love that movie. I haven't seen it. It came out in 2022, but yeah, the discourse around Anthony Edwards, his whole thing with, kind of has a Michael Jordan mentality, but out of college, I don't know if you remember the year he was drafted. The question was if he liked basketball enough. And that was like the big reason folks didn't want to pick him up. And now here we are a few years later talking about him being the face of the league. So I think it's safe to say, yeah, he probably does like basketball a little bit. But do you have any predictions?
Just a little.
Going into this weekend here? I got the schedule pulled up here. I think start tonight, Minnesota and OKC, 8:30, and then we get to see the Pacers and Knicks play tomorrow night at 8. And we have basketball every single night. It looks like they've set this up real nice for us. So looking forward to the next 2 weeks of basketball or so. Any predictions for us do you have?
I like the Timberwolves to beat the Thunder in this series. I think the Timberwolves, I just said it, with Julius Randle as their number 2 option. You have Anthony Edwards, who is a superstar leading the charge. And then, oh, by the way, we got Rudy Gobert, who's one of the best defensive big men in the league. Yep. Hasn't been really a liability because at times you can kind of pull him out of the paint and he can become a defensive liability. Hasn't necessarily been that so far in the playoffs. So I like where Rudy Gobert is. And then through all of it, you got Mike Conley, just like this steady Eddie guard who's been in the league for what feels like 25 years now.
Yeah,
and
he's made a lot of money in this league too.
He's made a lot of money, and he's just chugging along in Minnesota now. Yeah. Homie's just chilling and being the starting point guard and doing an exceptional job for the Timberwolves. I like everything they got rolling, and I'm really worried that the OKC Thunder don't have a second option. It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then it's let's see who's going to perform tonight. Is it going to be Chet Holmgren? Is it going to be Alex Caruso like it was a couple of games against the Denver Nuggets? Is it going to be finally Jalen Williams? Is it going to be Lou Dort? I don't know. All I know is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now I know why people just call him SGA.
SGA.
All I know is he's going to go off for 35, and that's about all I got. But he's fantastic. But the rest of OKC, I got a big question mark on. So I like the Timberwolves to win that series. And I'm going to have to fade you a little bit and go with the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference. Man, I just can't bet against Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, I don't hate anything you've said. I just now realized we got a little bit of that cousin matchup between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They are cousins, both from somewhere up in Canada. But I just realized that's the matchup we got coming up here. Is that the game that's tonight? I don't know.
That's tonight, and they got that's got to be the most combined letters and 2 last names for cousins. I mean, that is absurd.
SGA facing off. Obviously, Naw was at Virginia Tech when I was there. Big fan of him. I never thought he was that great at Virginia Tech. I'll say it. I was surprised that he was drafted as high as he was, and man, was I wrong, because he's on his I think 3rd contract now at this point. But anyway, great NBA talk. That was a lot of fun. I like where your head's at. I'm gonna completely fade you. I think I like. I like OKC.
One of us will probably be right.
At least one of the teams that we have picked will win.
Exactly.
So that's exciting. I'm pumped up for the next 2 weeks. Obviously, NHL playoffs are also going underway. Another situation of kind of some small market teams. Raleigh, Florida, which is that's not Miami. What's the Fort Lauderdale, right? Is that where the Panthers are?
I believe so. Let me give that the quick goo, because
I'm pretty sure, because I know they're not Miami. They're outside of obviously Edmonton, and then you have Dallas, which is a bigger city, but it's a hockey. it's not a hockey town, to say the least. And so
Fort Lauderdale, you are correct, in Sunrise, Florida.
So we'll see what goes on with that matchups. Obviously, the Canes knocked off the Caps. I know you were kind of tuned in with Alex Ovechkin and the Caps this year. I kind of thought that things kind of reminded me of 2018 of, when they were able to win the Stanley Cup, and then they finally won a playoff series, after not having won a playoff series since they had won the Cup. And all of a sudden it was like, there's all this momentum. And then the Canes just, put them into their little lunchbox and put them into the refrigerator and said, yeah, we'll see you next year.
Yeah, it was a real bummer, because I was right there with you. It was, okay, Ovi, he breaks the record. He's doing this fantastic thing. The team has so much momentum behind them. What, the best overall record in the Eastern Conference? This is going to be the year they break through and at least get back to the Eastern Conference Finals, a place they haven't been since 2018. And after that first series, okay, things are looking good. I like the way this team is trending. And then the Carolina Hurricanes just come, yeah, like put them in a launch. I mean,
They
it was
just suffocated them. They
it was
couldn't get anything on.
they couldn't get a single shot off, man. It was so annoying. You're just watching these games and you're like, shoot the dang puck, man.
Putts
Like
on
I
net,
felt like
pucks on neck.
I felt like Sandra Bullock's character in The Blind Side, where she's like, "Run the dang ball! It's just shoot the dang puck! Come on, let's get something on net." And the Canes are just like peppering Thompson in the net with shots themselves. And I'm like, "All right, this is not going to go well." And then when they lost Game 1 in the fashion that they did, that felt like a game that they may have been able to steal. A game that, let's be honest, they should have lost, and they did lose. But it was kind of teetering there for a little bit where, okay, maybe we can steal it, get that big Game 1 win at home. Then you can kind of see how the series breaks differently from there, but just never was really able to win a game they shouldn't. And the Canes literally did exactly what they needed to do. Came in, gave them the old gentleman's sweep, and off they go to Sunrise, Florida, where I guess Raleigh tonight, and then eventually Sunrise, Florida,
The Peas.
where try to take down the defending Stanley Cup champs.
So, a lot of stuff's been going on here locally as well. Did you watch any college softball this past weekend? Did you tune into the Liberty Flames action against Texas A&M? Because I'll admit I don't watch a lot of college softball, but I tuned in on Sunday night and was kind of blown away with what was going down in College Station.
Yeah, that was insane. What the first time ever since seeding began in 2005 that the number 1 overall seed in the nation doesn't make it out of the regional, thanks to the hometown, or I guess home state, Liberty Flames.
Yeah, your hometown. They're pitchers from Fredericksburg, I believe,
yeah,
right?
There we go. So perfect fitting there. I love the college softball regionals, super regionals, women's college World Series, all of that. So much fun. A little bit of a bummer that JMU hasn't been in it since 2021, and your Virginia Tech Hokies have taken the mantle of being very good at softball. Yeah. Although
they've been good at softball without being able to advance to a super regional for a while now.
Heartbreaker in Tuscaloosa. What 3-2 loss in that one?
But both times they lost to Alabama was that way.
Tough. That's a heartbreaking.
So it'll be exciting to see what Liberty does this weekend. They go across the country to Eugene. It was like 30 minutes after that game, and I was on all over the internet trying to figure out how the seating works. If there's 2 at-large bids, who gets to host, blah blah blah. And it was going to work out that Liberty was going to get to host a super regional against Stanford, and then Oregon would go on to walk off Stanford later on in that game. And so now they're going across the country. So things are a little different for Liberty. So we'll be sure to stay tuned in with what's going on over there with the Flames as they hit the road this weekend for Eugene. As for Randolph-Macon, they're hitting up the road for Bethlehem, PA for their super regional game at the D3 ranks. And then obviously the ACC baseball tournament's going on as we speak over in Charlotte. As for you, Jack, what's going on with you for the rest of the summer? And where can our viewers find more of you?
Yeah, we've just got, tons of NBA playoff coverage. We'll be covering that in depth over on Fits the Bill every weekday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. on ESPN Richmond 106.1 on your radio dial. And then in the 21st century, we on the ESPN Richmond app, espnrichmond.com. And we stream every show on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. You can find us at ESPN Richmond. And you can find the show itself on Instagram at Fits the Bill, ESPN RVA. We'll be diving into all things NBA, NHL playoffs. And then when the slow season starts, that's when we really start cooking. That's when it's list season. It's random movie talk. It's everything that makes sports radio. And that's coming up probably in a month and a half. When we hit July, we are going to be firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, so you can only talk about the squirrels so much.
We can only talk about the squirrels so much, and we can, I'm a big Valley Baseball League and summer collegiate guy, summer collegiate leagues.
I'm sure you did some broadcasting. Where were you at?
Oh, I was Harrisonburg Turks. So we might dive into the VBL.
The Green Bay Bullfrogs in the Northwoods League.
Northwoods League?
Yeah.
Oh,
I spent some time with the Petersburg Generals, the defunct team here in Petersburg in the CPL for a little bit as well.
So neither one of us found our way to the grand old Cape Cod League for the summer.
I enjoyed my time in Green Bay. I showed up thinking it was going to be a city like Richmond, and then it was like More so like a city like Suffolk, Virginia, where I mean, which is my hometown. So I was a little disappointed when there was nothing but just one big football stadium in the middle of nowhere. But
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense with Green
that's
Bay.
Green Bay
That
for
makes
you.
sense.
But anyway,
Harrisonburg, at least I was in my college apartment, so I didn't have to do much for that. But
there you go.
man, summer baseball leagues, if you haven't gotten out to one, the Chili Peppers are down the road a
Yeah,
little
that's right.
bit. I mean, there's
Shepherd
some
Stadium.
that is good baseball right there.
All right, Jack. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk a little ball with us today.
Appreciate it, Nolan. You have a great rest of your day.
You too, man. Thanks so much. All right, so that was Jack Fitzpatrick with Fitz the Bill. As he mentioned, you can catch him every morning on ESPN 106.1 FM. In terms of what we got going on here on 8 News tonight at 11, obviously we just heard about Jada Byers signing with a UFL team with the Memphis Showboats. Got to talk with him, gave us a great story about finding out about how he was going to be a pro finally after kind of waiting his turn to, didn't get drafted, didn't get signed by an NFL team, but did manage to get the news yesterday that he was going to go to the UFL. A day later, he's there for training camp. So great story with him. We'll do a little recap for that tonight at 11. And then obviously, we also got to talk Virginia Tech baseball as they took the field in the ACC tournament. So that's going to wrap things up for another edition of 8 Sports Nightcap. Thanks so much for Jack for stopping by. We'll catch you guys next week with another edition of 8 Sports Nightcap here on WRSEnow.com. Good night, everybody.